И бессмысленно было бы оправдываться, когда вся моя вина перед вами налицо. И я всецело передаю себя пролетарскому суду, как он найдет нужным вступить со мной.
This is one of the first Soviet documentary films with sound. This luxurious hall in central Moscow once belonged to the assembly of nobility. But after the revolution, the Bolsheviks turned it into something entirely different. Instead of holding balls and banquets as before, the room was used for show trials for those who took part in them. Each trial was not just a legal procedure, but rather a full political show with its own stars, such as the people's prosecutor, Krylenko. He's really a master. Look at how the audience is absorbed in the pageant. And how do you like this exchange? Only these strange performances often ended like this. We would like to share with you the story of one of these trials and its participant, who argued his own defence. Our film is the tale of a court that was thought up as a show, but turned into a genuine duel. In 1917, priest Leonid Fyodorov became exarch, essentially making him the head of the Eastern Rite Catholics in Russia. He was born in St. Petersburg. After losing his father at an early age, Leonid remained in the care of his mother, Lyubov Dmitrievna. Leonid Fyodorov's mother was an artist, according to her contemporaries, not a bad one. And that was where he got his refined artistic taste. As Lyubov Dmitrievna Fyodorova wrote in one of her letters, she could see all too clearly the hand of God leading her son. She believed he himself, with the help of God, could sort out everything better than she. As Leonid Fyodorov recalled, there were no books, no matter how atheistic or vulgar, that I couldn't read. I wasn't forbidden from anything. That didn't have any bearing on Lyubov Dmitrievna's firm management of the house, however. Generally, she was fairly strict with her son. Here it is, the air of Petersburg's Kazan region, which so enthralled Dostoevsky's readers. The future exarch of the Russian Catholic breathed this very same air in his childhood. Dostoevsky settled his characters around the house and gymnasium where Leonid Fyodorov lived and studied. And this is the St. Petersburg Spiritual Academy, which Leonid Fyodorov entered in 1901. At that time, Fyodorov imagined his future to be this: I'll try to find a suitable monastery, and if I don't, I'll live as a layperson, guided by the principles of the Stoics. Fyodorov's idea was to serve the truth. But how does one find truth? Reading all of these books? You might become better educated, smarter even. But will you manage to find truth in them? As a student, Fyodorov was concerned with the most complicated and contradictory questions, which confounded even the best teachers at the academy. It was there at the academy that he learned not only to ask tough questions, but to answer them.
Do you believe that you are obliged to follow the law?
I follow Soviet laws to the extent that they do not contradict my conscience.
We're not interested in hearing about this conscience of yours. I'm asking you simply, will you submit to Soviet authority or not?
If the Soviet government asks something of me that my conscience won't permit, then I cannot do it. Conscience is above the law. Laws that contradict the conscience cannot be binding.
We've already heard quite enough about your conscience. What do we care? Your conscience does not concern us at all.
But it concerns me very much.
Fyodorov didn't stop, continuing his search for his calling. He left the spiritual academy in St. Petersburg. I decided to take this irreversible step and travel abroad to become a Catholic, Fyodorov wrote in one of his letters.
All roads lead to Rome. But for a Russian heart, feeling a calling to serve the holy purpose of a unity of the churches, the road from Russia to Rome then lay through Lvov, where Metropolitan Andrei Sheptitsky was staying.
Lvov, at that time as it is today incidentally, was the centre of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. That ecclesiastical link to Rome was a sore point in Russia and treated with hostility. The local clergy, for its part, had a sharply negative attitude toward orthodoxy. Metropolitan Andrei Sheptitsky, however, did everything in his power to bridge the gap dividing the two Christian churches. He convinced Fyodorov that a Russian could become a Catholic without repudiating his nationality or becoming, for that matter, a Pole as Russian society saw it. At the same time, Sheptitsky would say, the Greek Catholic Church shouldn't assume an aggressive position regarding the Orthodox Church.
Дело в том, что вот эти вот общины,
The small Eastern Rite Catholic communities that had sprung up in Russia should have served as examples to the Orthodox Church. They showed that it was possible to retain one's way of church life and national traditions, and be Catholic at the same time.
свою традицию, свою национальную специфику, но при этом быть католиком.
Rome. Rome had a lot of significance for a Russian. Russian artists went to the Eternal City to learn the secrets of the visual arts. The Academy of Fine Arts sent its best students to Rome. Italian themes, Italian motifs. Grazie. Russian singers went to Italy to perfect their skills. Shaliapin enraptured connoisseurs of opera here. In Rome, Gogol, from his apartment on Via Felici, wrote his immortal poem, Dead Souls. Yes. All roads lead to Rome, and one of these roads brought Leonid Fyodorov to Rome. The Eternal City, society, and in general all of Italy, amazed him. He writes, "The freedom of Italian culture, its naturalness and simplicity, combined with the most delicate, aesthetic sense forced me to forget my fear in front of society and life. On July the 31st, 1902, in the famous Roman Church of Jesus, Fyodorov professed his Catholic faith. The Russian searcher for truth is granted an audience with Pope Leo XIII. The Pope offered the young Russian his undivided attention and gave his blessings to his intention to continue studying in a Catholic place of learning. After his studies in Europe, Father Leonid decided to take the monastic vows in 1912. He chose a Studite monastery. There's one such monastery 40 kilometers from Lvov. Since the 9th century, the way of life, the charter, and the rites have not changed significantly. If you ever see a cross like this, you'll know that it's the cross of the Studites.
This is a small secluded monastery where the Studite monks live, and I am the Father Superior of this monastery. The monks here at the monastery are involved in all kinds of things: wood carving, instructing children, icon painting, keeping bees. Our monastery is probably different from others in that we don't have some special purpose or special goal, by which I mean charisma. Anyone at all can come here to develop the talents they received from the Lord and to serve their neighbours.
Fyodorov was a monk at our Studite monastery.
Father Gideon, at 90, is the oldest monk of the Holy Assumption Monastery.
I was young then. There isn't anyone else anymore who was around and to remember him. He was the first to want to build a uniate church in Russia. It would follow the Russian rite, but would be subordinate to the Holy See, with the Pope as the church's head.
Father, from what I've heard, the Roman Catholic Church is going to name Father Leonid a martyr.
When he is proclaimed a saint, we will greet him as a saint. This will be his solemn return to his monastery.
There were many martyrs in the 20th century, more than in all of the preceding centuries combined. Scientists and researchers have said there were 126 million martyrs. That's twice as many as in the preceding 19 centuries of Christianity.
Colossal events were brewing in the world then. The First World War began. The war broke out while Father Leonid was in Constantinople. He naturally raced back to Russia, where he was promptly arrested. Instead of jailing him in Petropavlovka, they exiled him to Tobolsk. The authorities were afraid of him, and his correspondence with Metropolitan Sheptytsky was reason enough to exile him. In February 1917, the monarchy collapsed and all political prisoners were freed. They celebrated with their former prison keepers and were overjoyed. Alexander Fyodorovich Kerensky, who was then still the Interior Minister, announced a sweeping amnesty. Everyone applauded it. Metropolitan Sheptytsky arrived in the capital. The provisional government passed a law declaring complete freedom of conscience and religion. On June the 11th, 1917, in the Church of St. John the Baptist, which is known as the Maltese Chapel, a ceremonial liturgy was held. After it opened as Russia's first Catholic cathedral, Metropolitan Sheptytsky named Father Leonid Exarch of all Russia. Father Leonid dreamed of overcoming the centuries-old division between Christianity's two main branches, but Russia was facing its own mounting discord, and a bloody undertaking got underway with a shot, a blank fire from that legendary cruiser. On October the 25th, 1917, that shot struck out all hopes for freedom in Russia. Father Leonid wrote to Metropolitan Sheptytsky that we thought we would breathe free, but everything was turned upside down and we were left no better off than before. The Catholic clergy recognized the inevitable catastrophe awaiting Russia, and understood that to protect the Church's independence and its ideals, unity with Orthodoxy was essential. Father Leonid organized a meeting between Catholic and Orthodox leaders. Patriarch Tikhon, the primate of the Orthodox Church, met with the Russian Catholics. Father Leonid wrote, "The Patriarch was very affectionate when we met. He sincerely wants unity." But the Patriarch himself was in a very dangerous position then, expecting to be arrested any day. That winter, the Eastern Rite Catholics went underground, with services being held in people's homes. On March the 5th, 1923, all of the Catholic priests in Petrograd were ordered to appear before the Supreme Revolutionary Tribunal in Moscow. As soon as they arrived at Nikolaevsky Station, they were all arrested. The trial was held in this building. The defendants were accused of forming a secret counter-revolutionary organization.
I spit on your religion, like I spit on all religions. Orthodox, Jewish, Mohammedan, and all the rest.
Prosecutor Krylenko spat not only on religion, but on fairness and moral law as well. Krylenko didn't know then that he too would be caught up in the bloody slaughter, which he played a most active role in furthering. But the main participant in the proceedings was the judge Galkin, a former priest. He was eager to curry favor with his new masters. The duel between the defendant Fyodorov and Judge Galkin looked like a duel between the truth and darkness. Fyodorov refused to accept the help of lawyers and defended himself.
All my life has been built around two pillars: my love for the Church and my love for my motherland, which I adore. Ever since I joined the Catholic Church, my singular task has been to bring my motherland closer to what I believe to be the true Church.
Prosecutor Nikolai Krylenko concluded his presentation of the charges with the words,
Your game is up. The only thing left for you is to carry your cross.
And here are Father Leonid's closing remarks.
I have nothing more to say. Our hearts are not filled with anger, but sorrow. We cannot be understood. freedom of conscience does not exist for us. And that's a conclusion based on everything that we've heard here.
They were sentenced on March the 25th, 1923. Archbishop Ciepliak and Prelate Budkiewicz were sentenced to socialism's highest measure of defense, the firing squad. Exarch Leonid Fyodorov was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and the rest of the priests received sentences from 3 to 10 years. The name of an archipelago, the Solovetsky Islands, became one of the most powerful symbols in Russia's modern history. The Solovki, as they were known, are located not far from the Arctic Circle. This was the site of an Orthodox monastery dating back to the 16th century. After the Bolshevik coup, the area was turned into one of the first Soviet concentration camps, known by its Russian acronym SLON, or Elephant, the Solovetsky Special Purpose Camp. Leonid Fyodorov was brought to the Solovki on October the 26th, 1926. The 47-year-old exarch was ill. First and foremost among the universal torments on the Solovki was the crowding and the associated inhuman living conditions. No more than 1,000 monks ever lived at the monastery, whereas during the Soviet years, 15,000 and sometimes 20,000 prisoners were held there. Those who were not sent packages of food in the mail were doomed to starve, and everyone, without exception, was required to complete massive amounts of logging that would be impossible even for a healthy person. Many died from exhaustion while working. Some chopped off their fingers in hopes of being sent to the infirmary, but the camp directors thought up even harsher torments for them, such as standing in the neck-deep, icy waters of the White Sea or sitting for days in a cold isolation cell. Of the people who met with the exarch on the Solovki, Yulia Danzas, who spent 3 years in the Solovetsky camp, left us the most valuable testimony.
Anyway, I only have myself to blame. The responsibility lay with me, not with anyone else. My prayers did not find God's favour.
Father Leonid,
Danzas answered.
is it really my place to show you that your sufferings are the crown of our feet and a guarantee of future?
After these words, the exarch calmed down. Then Father Leonid spoke again.
The entire history of the Russian Church came together so strangely, so absurdly, that there is here some secret of atonement. Perhaps the Russian Church's contribution to the treasure of the ecumenical church is just that. It shows us that only through suffering, rather than through triumph, that it belongs to the mystical body of Christ. For us, a triumph triumphing the world is a cross raised over the world, not for worship around it, but crucifixion on it.
In November 1933, he was released with the provision that he must not live in 12 major cities. He chose Vyatka, now known as Kirov, as his new home, and moved into the house of a petty bourgeois family, the Kalinins. In early March, his health took a sharp turn for the worse. Andrei Kalinin, the house's owner, describes what happened next.
His arms rested on his chest, with the right above the left. My wife called me and said, "He isn't dying, is he?" I turned to him and said, "Please, tell me, what should we do? Are you feeling unwell?" But he was lying there motionlessly, with his eyes open and unblinking. His face started to pale. We checked to see if he'd stopped breathing. We waited until 2 o'clock that day without touching him.
On March the 10th, 1934, a Sunday, after all the standard formalities in such situations were taken care of, the Kalinin family went out at 8 p.m. when it had already started to grow dark, and buried the body of Father Leonid Fyodorov.
том, была ли принята эта жертва.
Was this sacrifice worth it? To what extent was this path, this whole affair justified? From the viewpoint of this world, it was, in political terms, a complete failure. Although the community had been, as the investigators said, smashed, and, on the face of things, failure awaited it, the tradition continued nonetheless. Perhaps weakly and in selective ways, but the tradition lives on to this day.
Вітаємо тебе, кохаємо тебе.
The Pope has insisted that the feats of martyrs not be allowed to disappear from people's memories. As of today, he has already beatified 1,200 or 1,300 martyrs. Among them is Father Leonid Fyodorov, Exarch of the Greek Catholic Church in Russia.
в Росії.